All right.
Phone's on vibrate.
Okay, you guys ready?
Tell me when you guys are set.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
I speak to you today during a time that's holy and filled with meaning for believers around the world. Earlier this week, Jewish people gathered with family and friends to recite the stories of their ancestors' struggle and ultimate liberation. Tomorrow, Christians of all denominations will come together to rejoice and remember the resurrection of Jesus Christ. These are two very different holidays with their own very different traditions, but it seems fitting that we mark them both during the same week. For in a larger sense, they are both moments of reflection and renewal. They're both occasions to think more deeply about the obligations we have to ourselves and the obligations we have to one another, no matter who we are, where we come from, or what faith we practice.
Move into the close. Check focus. Okay. Drop down and touch. Good.
Ready?
Yes.
This idea that we're all bound up, as Martin Luther King once said, in a single garment of destiny, is a lesson of all the world's great religions. And it never has been more important for us to reaffirm that lesson than it is today, at a time when we face tests and trials unlike any that we've seen in our time. An economic crisis that recognizes no borders. Violent extremism that's claimed the lives of innocent men, women, and children from Manhattan to Mumbai. An unsustainable dependence on foreign oil and other sources of energy that pollute our air and water and threaten our planet. The proliferation of the world's most dangerous weapons, the persistence of deadly disease, and the recurrence of age-old conflicts.
Okay, come out to the medium. Good.
Ready? Start over. These are challenges that no single nation, no matter how powerful, These are challenges that no single nation, no matter how powerful, can confront alone. The United States must lead the way, but our best chance to solve these unprecedented problems comes from acting in concert with other nations. That's why I met this week with leaders of G20 nations to ensure that, let's start over. All right, ready?
Yes, sir.
These are challenges that no single nation, no matter how powerful, can confront alone. The United States must lead the way, but our best chance to solve these unprecedented problems comes from acting in concert with other nations. And that's why I met this week with leaders of the G20 nations to ensure that the world's largest economies take strong and unified action in the face of the global economic crisis. Together, we've taken steps to stimulate growth, restore the flow of credit, open up markets, and dramatically reform our financial regulatory system to prevent such crises from occurring again. Steps that will lead to job creation at home. It's only by working together that we will finally defeat 21st century security threats like Al-Qaeda. So it was heartening that our NATO allies united in Strasbourg behind our strategy in Afghanistan and Pakistan and contributed important resources to support our efforts there. It's only by coordinating with countries around the world that we will stop the spread of the world's most dangerous weapons. And that's why I laid out a strategy in Prague for us to work with Russia and other nations to stop the proliferation of nuclear weapons, to secure nuclear materials from terrorists, and ultimately to free the world from the menace of a nuclear nightmare. And it's only by building a new foundation of mutual trust that we will tackle some of our most entrenched problems. And that's why in Turkey, I spoke to members of parliament and university students about rising above the barriers of race, region, and religion that too often divide us.
Last section, close.
Ready?
Drop down just a touch. Okay. Good.
Okay. Ready?
Yes, sir.
With all that's at stake today, we cannot afford to talk past one another. We can't afford to allow old differences to prevent us from making progress in areas of common concern. We can't afford to let walls of mistrust stand. Instead, we have to find and build on our mutual interests. For it is only when people come together and seek common ground that some of that mistrust can begin to fade. And that's where progress begins. Make no mistake, we live in a dangerous world, and we must be strong and vigilant in the face of these threats. But let us not allow whatever differences we have with other nations to stop us from coming together around those solutions that are essential to our survival and success. As we celebrate Passover, Easter, and this time of renewal, let's find strength in our shared resolve and purpose in our common aspirations. And if we can do that, then not only will we fulfill the sacred meaning of these holy days, but we will fulfill the promise of our country as a leader around the world.
Great.
All right?
Next one is,
All right, let's see if it works. It's my privilege to join all of you tonight as we celebrate Justice Breyer's 15 years on our nation's highest court and his many years of distinguished public service before that. Justice Breyer, as I was thinking about how to honor you, I asked myself a series of questions. I thought, let's say you have a justice, and that justice is served for 15 years, and those 15 years have been characterized by wisdom and judgment, and you want to convey to that justice how grateful our nation is for his service. How do you best honor him? And now, let's say that the person recording the video is the president, because I am the president. How would that person, if indeed he were to tape a video, namely a video honoring a justice for, let's say, 15 years on the bench, go about honoring him? And let's say that this person, the president, wanted to work in mutant tomato children affecting the city of Boston. Would it be reasonable for him to do that? That is my question. Now, tell me why I'm wrong. After engaging in that hypothetical exercise, I concluded that perhaps it would be better to talk about what I've already done as president to pay tribute to Justice Breyer. Few people are aware of this, but my recovery plan actually includes a provision in honor of Justice Breyer. I'm speaking, of course, of my administration's commitment to hiring his former clerks in the White House counsel's office. It's called Leave No Breyer Clerk Behind. In all seriousness, tonight I'd like to thank Justice Breyer for his outstanding service to our nation. Throughout his time on the bench, Justice Breyer has affirmed a simple principle, that the law must work for people. That wise judgment requires knowledge of precedent and procedure, as well as an understanding of how the law operates in the daily lives of ordinary Americans. And Justice Breyer has always written with both civility and humility. When he disagrees with his colleagues, he's never disagreeable. His opinions are unfailingly respectful of all views, and they reflect his core belief that our government must ensure that ordinary people can take part in our democracy. So tonight, I am proud to pay tribute to you, Justice Breyer, and your contributions to the court and our country these past 15 years. I could, of course, speculate about all that you will contribute in the future, but then again, it's probably best that we leave the hypothetical scenarios to you. We all look forward to hearing, reading, and learning much more from you for many years to come. Thank you, and best wishes. You thought it was pretty funny, huh? It kind of ruins his humor there.
this is the lawyer, the Illinois Holocaust Museum. A very quick, these are much shorter than last.
All right. Ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm so sorry I can't be with you in person, but it is my great privilege to join all of you in marking the opening of the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center. This museum, built with help from survivors and supported by so many others, will serve as a lasting memorial to all those who died in the Holocaust and those who lived through it. But it will also help each of us understand what we can do to fight the many forms of injustice and cruelty that persist in our own time. Countless visitors will walk through the rooms of this museum, reminded of a truth that speaks not just to our past, but to our present and our future, that there is no greater obligation than to confront acts of inhumanity, from the concentration camps of Europe to the villages of Darfur, that we each have a responsibility to stand up for our fellow.
Just go back up to beginning of this paragraph. Right? Countless visitors.
All right.
Frame type, please. Drop down. That's good.
Ready?
Thanks, sir.
Countless visitors will walk through the rooms. Start over. Countless visitors will walk through the rooms of this museum, reminded of a truth that speaks not just to our past, but to our present and our future, that there is no greater obligation than to confront acts of inhumanity, from the concentration camps of Europe to the villages of Darfur, that we each have a responsibility to stand up for our fellow human beings. That's the lesson that school children will learn when they visit this museum, when they read the names inscribed in the Room of Remembrance, or sit quietly in the Hall of Reflection, when they recognize that the way to honor those who died is not simply to mourn, but to act, to do our part to prevent these kinds of atrocities from ever happening again. This truth of our common humanity and collective responsibility is one we must continually renew and reaffirm, not only in our words, but in our deeds. That's the mission of this museum. That is a great cause of my presidency, and that must be the ongoing work of our nation in the years to come. Thank you.
Great.
All right.
Dean's